What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. I've got an interesting one for you guys today. So this was suggested in the comment section. I thought it'd be a really good video. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a mock draft here, but from every single spot. So I'm gonna walk through, let's say I'm team 1, 2, 3, 4. I am every single one of these teams. How would I play through this draft right now? One thing I wanna note, I've set the first round, and this is a question I get asked 20 times a day. Rankings are rankings. You can always deviate. Like if players are projected by like 1 point difference, like you can always deviate, and that's kind of when you deviate towards targets. For the first round though, there's really no draft strategy aside from like the overarching ones we've had. So you know how we've talked about these first like 5, 6 picks, I probably want to be taking a running back. I'm trying to go maybe anchor RB if I'm taking like a top. You could probably do it a top 6 pick, but really like the top 3, 4, depends on your format. Full PPR, Henry's kind of bumped out, so it's really only the first 3, but those overarching strategies. But for the most part, just draft based off the rankings for a first round pick. Then after that, it's going to depend on what you pick. So we might be in the 4th round, someone might be top in the projections, top in the rankings, but if I already have 3 running backs and the top player on the board in the 4th round is a running back, well, don't take them, right? Because you don't want your 4th running back before you attack other positions. So I think this would be really good to walk through. Again, I've set this first round. You can look at that. I don't want to go like super in depth on all of these picks because I have a million times, but you guys know why these running backs are first. We want running back. You guys know positional advantage for Kelsey. Adams is my top receiver. Taylor is next. Hill is next. And then Chubb, Harris. Like that's just how it rounds out the first round. So we're going to do that draft. Stat of the day, I'm honestly not sure if yesterday's video is even going to get up. I believe the stat for that was what team had the most sacks given up to their quarterback. So if you combine all the quarterbacks that played for a team, what team allowed their quarterback to be sacked the most times per game? Answer was the Eagles. I don't know if the video is going up, so I don't even know if someone's going to win it. Today's stat, though, is what running back had the longest carry last season. So it didn't have to be a touchdown. Let's be honest, it was a touchdown, obviously, if it's the longest carry, but who had the longest rush last season? So I do believe this is going to be a long video because I'm literally making every single one of these picks. I didn't even check what our roster settings are. All right, so our roster settings are 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex spots. This is my preferred setup. I think it's more fun when you add a flex. Only 5 bench spots. That's interesting. But let's be honest, I'll just like name off a few players that didn't get drafted maybe towards the end. But let's just do this because it is this. I need to get this video under like 1,000,000 hours. So let's just do the video. So next up, who are we looking at? This team 12 again, Snake. Team 12. If you can't see, they took Najee Harris here. Team 12 took a running back. When I'm at the turn, it's definitely viable to grab running back and a wide receiver, but I personally would probably do that at the turn if Adams or Hill were on the board. I'm not sure that I would do it with Calvin Ridley, who would be my next receiver. So I would probably just go with another running back here, and the top running back I would be targeting is Antonio Gibson. And I think this is a start a lot of you are going to have, especially if you follow the rankings. These guys are 12, 13 in the rankings. I am not pulling up the rankings and drafting just based off that because then I would just basically be throwing the rankings on the screen, and I don't want to be doing that. So, but I kind of know in general people are going. But yeah, 12, 13 I do know for a fact is Harris Gibson. Just being able to lock that up. So now we're team 12. We know for pretty high certainty we're not going to be taking a running back in like this kind of range because we've already locked up 2 we love. You can say a similar strategy for Nick Chubb if there was another running back you wanted. I don't think it would be a bad strategy to take Barkley with this pick and just basically say we know with 100% certainty that Nick Chubb is going to be good, right? There are no risk factors with Nick Chubb. Maybe I don't personally think he's going to be a top 5 running back, but he's going to be like a low-end one. He's going to produce. Why not take a chance now that we have a secured player in someone like Barkley? Because now maybe we've locked in a top 5 back with a lower-end first-round back. So I think this would be a good spot for Barkley. I could also see you going with Eckler there. Eckler is a name that a lot of people really like. I am not completely sold on Eckler just because I do believe that they're going to rotate on their backs. They have the new offensive coordinator. There's a risk there. Like maybe they're better, but maybe they're also worse than they were last season. Maybe they don't gel as much. Herbert and the offensive coordinator. And so there are definitely risk factors with Eckler. And so I'm not as on board as a lot of other people. Something you could do, so we are the Tyreek Hill team here. You could start off 0 RB. So you could say, okay, I've got Tyreek Hill. Why don't I lock in someone like Calvin Ridley? And now I've got two guys that I legitimately think could finish 1 and 2. That's a huge advantage. Maybe I can then attack running back in this 3rd and the 4th round. That would be a nice start if you didn't want Eckler. Let's pull up running back. Your other option if you didn't want Eckler is basically only Mixon. I don't think you'd be considering any other running back. So it'd be, do you want Eckler, Mixon, or do you want to start off RB0? I think it'd be fun to see what an RB0 builds. So I think, again, Calvin Ridley, I think he could lead the league in receiving. I think he would be the best pick here. Let's start off RB0 with this pick. At team 9, they've got Jonathan Taylor, another running back I think is pretty locked in. I don't think there's a huge value at wide receiver here. You could go with Hopkins. You could, and all these questionables, these guys are fine, by the way. You're not avoiding them or anything. You go with Hopkins, you go with Diggs. Diggs would be my pick. I don't know. I don't love that. So I think if I'm the Jonathan Taylor person, I'm probably just going with Eckler here. If I'm the Adams person, I'm probably going. Adams is just so locked in to be dominant. I would rather take a shot on running back. But now I see a drop off. So after Mixon comes off the board, that's actually really unfortunate for our Kelsey team here because you'd have preferred a running back at that spot. But now that we see the top guys like Clyde, Carson, Montgomery, now that we see this range, there's no way if I took Kelsey, I'm taking a running back here. I'm definitely not taking Clyde and Kelsey to start off. And it's too early for a quarterback. So I would probably just grab Diggs. I would say Diggs could easily finish as the number 1 wide receiver this season. And so I'm grabbing the number 1 tight end, the number 1 wide receiver. Maybe I push this to the extreme and I try and grab like one of the top 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks. And I say, this is another thing. I'm going to try and get number 1 in. And if I can get number 1 in 3 different positions, then I can go back to running back. And I don't have to be dominant in that because I'm crushing everywhere else. So that would be a strategy here. All of these guys, well, we're definitely not looking running back, right? We've locked in our stud. We're anchoring around that. And so I'm not reaching on running back. And so honestly, we're just going to see a run at wide receiver here until one of these teams takes Waller. That's basically what it would be. My guess is that Waller would not be going yet. And so we'd see wide receiver come off the board. I would guess we see Hopkins come off the board. With the Zeke team, I think you would go after DK Metcalf. With the Henry team, you could consider a stack here of A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry and basically say, I know that not every week they're both going off, but I know that for plenty of weeks, they're both going to be really good. And for every single week, one of them is going off. So if A.J. Brown has a bad week, it is extremely likely that Derrick Henry went off. And so I know you think that you're lowering the floor when you take 2 of the same team in like the first 2 rounds, but this is the Titans. This is a very condensed offense. We know where the production is going to be, and there'll be plenty of games again where they both go off, and very few, if any, that they both dud. So that is an option. If you didn't want to do that, though, and I know a lot of people don't want to do that, your pick would just be Justin Jefferson. So you go with Justin Jefferson. The Kamara team goes here and probably takes A.J. Brown. And now we're at Dalvin Cook. And now it's when you start considering these tight ends. So I'm still definitely not going with running back. I personally think it's a little too early for Mahomes. And so Waller. The McCaffrey team, which is technically what I'm headlined by, but isn't actually me because I'm all of them, obviously. The McCaffrey team is upset with that pick because if you can start off a draft with McCaffrey, Waller, stud receiver, it's such a good build. But honestly, it's a great build for Dalvin Cook and Kamara as well. That's why I think Waller should be going in this range. Probably shouldn't exit that area. So McCaffrey, that's our first pick here. Still not going to go running back. Well, maybe. So I think that is kind of where a tier break happens at wide receiver. I think a lot of these guys are the same. Lamb, McLaurin, Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, all those guys are very similar picks. So one strategy you could use here is to take two, to just be like, hey, maybe your favorite two are Keenan Allen and CeeDee Lamb. And so you just say, give me McCaffrey, my rock, give me two stud receivers to headline that. Now I'm not weak at receiver or running back. That would probably be, if I'm drafting this team, that's probably the way I go. So I would take Keenan Allen there, and then I would take CeeDee Lamb after that. I think that's how I'd start that build off. We're back to the Cook team. Cook has Cook, Waller. Can now consider a running back, honestly. No, with how good no, I would do Nick Lauren. So I would continue going with wide receiver. Now I think it's when I'd go back to running back. So these teams were initially thinking maybe I go RB0, anchor running back. But all of these studs that you'd be hoping for as team 3, 4, 5 are gone now with McLaurin. At least I think Allen Robinson, I guess. So it'd be Allen Robinson is probably the last one that you'd really be hoping for under that strategy. So do you take Allen Robinson? Do you take George Kittle? So those are two. Or do we start going with Clyde, Montgomery, Carson? Those are really our options. I actually think that that's really difficult. I'm thinking with Kamara, I have just so much confidence in that pick that I'm going to continue going with anchor running back. And I think I'd prefer Allen Robinson. And then I think I would prefer Kittle. I think that's what's going to happen here. Allen Robinson, then Kittle. Now our team that has Ezekiel Elliott, DK Metcalf, I think that's when we would start seeing that run at running back come back, and we'd see Clyde go off the board. The team that started off Aaron Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, I think would start taking running back as well. They would probably take Carson over Montgomery, and then I think our Kelsey team needs a running back now, and so we give them Montgomery. I think that's a very solid start to this draft for all these top 7 teams. Now we start getting to the 8 team, and the 8 team definitely can't be feeling good right now. Having Adams and Mixon, it's like I feel great about Adams, but Mixon as my one isn't a fantastic feeling just given how much he's busted. I do think that he's going to have a fantastic season. Obviously, no one's taking his early down work. I do think they could take some of the text massage, right? I do think that is it Evans, Chris Evans, something like that. I do think he's going to take third down work, but I think Mixon's just going to be so involved. It's still a safe pick. It's just we've seen Mixon bust in the past, and so you can't feel fantastic about just having that. But then you look at the running backs, and you're like, no, there's no way I'm taking a running back in this range if I'm team 8 here. So team 8 also looks at tight end. Well, I'm not taking a tight end this spot. So this is probably where this team is looking for Mahomes. I mean, you basically would only have Mahomes, or do you start attacking like DJ Moore, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Evans, Godwin, Amari? But all those guys are the same. So I think if I'm this team, this is when I'm taking Patrick Mahomes. You could have argued Mahomes with the Kelsey stack, but I think that locking up David Montgomery, locking up those touches for the team that didn't have a running back yet was probably the sharper thing to do. And you notice every single team has at least one running back at this point, besides for Team 10, because we're going to see running back fall off a cliff very, very soon. Going to Team 9, they've got Jonathan Taylor, they've got Austin Eckler. They're set at running back. We're absolutely not taking a running back here. You could argue Josh Allen. I would say the second round is a little bit too early for him. So they would probably just go with a wide receiver here. They're pretty safe at running back. So I would think that they'd be willing to take a chance here at wide receiver. And if you're willing to take a chance, it's probably Amari Cooper. He definitely has some risk that CeeDee Lamb is the one, that Dak isn't fully healthy. But at the end of the day, you're getting a piece of one of the best passing attacks in football, a piece that has super high weekly upside. And I think that it's a good pick for your first receiver here, even if I have other receivers in the rankings higher. Just locking up these two running backs, you want to maybe take a little bit more risk with that receiver. Opposite's true. We have Tyreek Hill, we have Calvin Ridley. So we're set at wide receiver. Do you continue attacking wide receiver, take an insanely high upside pick, or do you go to running back? Nope, still not going to running back. I think with this pick, you'd go with Mike Evans because you can start 4 receivers. And Mike Evans is going to have that volatile production. But, every week Tyreek Hill's there. Every week Calvin Ridley's going to be there. You just want Mike Evans to be volatile. You want to capture that 150 and 3 touchdown game that he has because you just won that week, right? You're okay with a little bit of volatility in that flex spot. So I think Evans would probably be the pick there. Now we've got both of the players who had gone with 2 running backs. So they're not going with a third running back. Have to think they're going with receiver here. I would say I don't want to stack teammates. Yeah, it doesn't look like I'll stack teammates. I would say with this pick, we could see the Rams receivers come off the board. We could see Deontay Johnson come off the board. I think Josh Allen would come off the board in the 4th round. I think each of these guys would take a wide receiver. I don't think Pitts would be the play. Yeah, I think each would take a receiver. And so why don't we do Godwin as a safer asset for the team that drafted Barkley. The team that has Harrison Gibson, I think, can take a little bit more risk with their receiver. Do they go? I don't think they'd go with Julio. I wouldn't go with Julio. I don't think they'd go with Lockett. I don't think Deontay would come off the board yet. I think it would be a Rams receiver. Maybe they would stack. No, they wouldn't stack Rams receiver. I think it would be Robert Woods. Then I think Team 12 would end up taking Josh Allen. And then I think Team 11 would go and take Kupp. I think that's how I would see it play out. Team 12 didn't want to stack Rams receivers. Felt good with running back, solid with Woods. Just grab the positional advantage with Josh Allen. Now we get back to Team 10, who's going RB0, has got 3 wide receivers. That's not fantastic from a running back standpoint that we've still abandoned it. So I'm thinking this team is feeling pretty garbage about their running back core. And so I'm thinking they take a running back here. You would probably go with Swift. You'd be fine with him starting the season slow. You would be fine if he wasn't 100% to start just because you're locked in at wide receiver. Take that chance with running back. I think that's what they would do. Team 9, Jonathan Taylor, Eckler, and Amari Cooper. I'm thinking that this team, could they go with a running back? I don't think that I personally would. I wouldn't go with a running back there. So wide receiver option, I would say DJ Moore. DJ Moore would be their pick there. Much more likely that Team 8 goes with the running back. They've got Adams, Mixon, and Mahomes. And if they went with a running back, I would think James Robinson would come off the board. I personally do think that Carlos Hyde is going to have a major role this season. But this is still going to be a good offense. Robinson should be used on third downs more, should have goal line opportunities. And so he'd be a nice player to add in there with Mixon. The team that's got Kelsey, Diggs, and Montgomery probably wants a running back as well at this spot, would probably be leaning safer. And I would imagine that they go after Gus here. Just saying, I took a chance having the tight end first, wide receiver early. I just need someone who's going to produce points. And so Montgomery produces points, Gus produces points. Team that's got Aaron Jones, Hopkins, and Carson. They've got 2 running backs, 1 receiver. Don't need to go with a running back at this pick. To pair with Hopkins, does this team say? This team is very safe. I think they would take a chance. I think they would take Pitts. I think Pitts would come off the board there. Just because, Hopkins is going to be good. Aaron Jones, Carson, they're going to be good. This is where you take your chance, and that's where you take Pitts. I think that's where Pitts comes off. Eckler, Zeke, Metcalf, and Carson. Wow, I'm messing up the names here. All right, Zeke, Metcalf, and Clyde. Good with running backs. Probably wants another receiver. Deontay. I think Deontay would come off the board. We're starting to get back into these teams that are going anchor running back, and the team that has Kittle is definitely feeling good. So I'm thinking Kyler comes off the board. I'm thinking we see, if it's me, I'm seeing a run at quarterback here. So Kyler comes off the board. Lamar comes off the board. I would think another quarterback probably comes off the board here, taking Dak. And then the McCaffrey team's a little upset again because they wanted Waller. They wanted a quarterback. That didn't work out. So honestly, I feel like the Cook team is working out much better here. But having McCaffrey, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, and now 2 picks here, probably wouldn't go quarterback because now you really got less value in the first few teams. So not go quarterback. This team would probably consider a tight end. So I would think Mark Andrews at 1 pick. Then considers going back to running back. I think that the receivers are fine at this spot. You could take probably Ayuk. But I think this team would go back to running back here and probably take Miles Sanders. So taking a chance on Sanders, knowing that he might have a much less role in the passing game. Knowing they must have a lower role in the passing game, but then also goal line opportunities could get taken away. I think it's less likely having Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. They're probably not taking too many goal line opportunities, but also Hurts could take goal line opportunities. So there's reasons to not be on Sanders, but I think since you have McCaffrey, you're good to go there. Dalvin Cook, Darren Waller, McLaurin, Dak Prescott. That's a really nice beginning. Can consider going back to running back as well, I would say. Obviously, you're done tight end, you're done quarterback. So every single pick through the rest of the draft is going to be running back and wide receiver. If there's a receiver that stands out, I think, I think you go with Ayuk there. You're still locking in that stud. Similar thought process for Kamara and Henry. I would say unless a running back is standing out, it would really only be Javonte Williams. I think that would be the only one. I don't think that I would end up doing that. I think this team goes with Jamar Chase. I think that the Derrick Henry team is also fine with running back, and I feel like they would end up going with someone like Thielen. Zeke and Carson. Why do I keep saying Carson? Zeke and Clyde is probably enough at running back. And so with this next team, Hawkinson. This team already has Pitts, so not going to go with tight end. Has 2 running backs as well, and Carson and Aaron Jones. So probably this team would go with wide receiver. Maybe Julio. Yeah, Julio would probably come off the board here. Grab the upside of Julio because, again, this team was safe, so now we're taking some chances with these picks. Team starts off Kelsey, Diggs, and then 2 running backs. Might go, I'd say Wilson, Henderson. Wilson or Henderson? And I would probably say Wilson. So I'd say Wilson comes off. Team that's got Mahomes and Adams, but then has Robinson and Mixon. I would say make sure no wide receivers are getting too late here. Would they go with Lockett, do you think? I think another wide receiver for sure. Yeah, I think Lockett. I think Lockett comes off the board. Add him in with Adams. You're cool with that volatility because you know Adams every single week is going to be good for you. Next team that's got Taylor Eckler, Cooper, and DJ Moore. Pretty set at both of those. Would they consider... I don't think I'd consider tight end now that those guys are gone. They consider quarterback. It'd be Aaron Rodgers next, but I think this might be too early. They would probably go with a high upside running back. Williams. It'd probably be Williams. Just star-studded cast at running back for this team. Our beginning wide receiver team that went Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, Swift, needs help at running back. Probably would have liked Williams. Needs help at running back, needs a little upside, and so is going to go with another upside pick at Henderson. We've got our two teams at the tail end, 11 and 12, to start off with two running backs. Probably doesn't want to go with running back here because they invested so much capital at the position early on. Like I said, you've got Aaron Rodgers still sitting there. But I think they keep hammering out high upside wide receivers. And I don't love how these teams are turning out at the tail end. You really want these like mid picks and first, like early first round picks. But definitely not going with Michael Thomas, not going with Galladay. So it would be T. Higgins, it would be Claypool, Judy, Devonta Smith. So I think we would see a nice run at receiver here. Probably Higgins with the struggles that Chase has been having at 12 and 12 again, I guess. Probably two receivers. So I would say Claypool and Judy would be probably the two that I'd be looking at. And then I think Devonta Smith would come off the board for our team 11. Let's make sure we can get him. And I think after this round, we're going to like take a step back, see how some of these teams are looking overall, and then we'll continue with the rest of the draft. So maybe I'll just bust through. I'm going to bust through like the 6th round. I'm not going to give too much of a take here on each of the picks. And then we'll look at every team. We'll see kind of what positions we're liking to start for, what teams maybe we need to upgrade. We'll go from there. So I'm gonna go really fast through the 6th round, and let's see where we're looking. So wide receivers and running backs. Let's look overall. I would say Jacobs would probably be the pick next. Let's go. I already have too many running backs. Let's go Sutton. Next pick. Next two guys already have a quarterback, so they're not going to go quarterback. Let's go receiver again. Nope, I see a drop off. Let's not go receiver again. I would say Hunt. I would say Edmonds. And probably Mike Davis would be next. I don't think this team would go with the running back run. I think they would take receiver, which would probably be Odell. Probably see another receiver come off the board after Jefferson and Thielen. Did not notice that. That's two players in the same team there. Rather unfortunate. This team would probably end up taking Robbie Anderson. Our anchor running back team with Kamara does have a quarterback, so we're probably taking quarterback with this pick over here. I feel like I missed it on this one. Let's go back to running back. Take Gaskin, and then Harris, and then quarterback. I think that's how it would kind of play out. And I would do Rodgers. Okay, so we're through the first 6 rounds. I do think it is fairly clear that the early teams have a massive advantage. They were able to secure quarterbacks, tight ends that are elite. They have the best running backs in the game. They still got great wide receivers. The first 5 picks are like unfair with how good they are. Then I would say these middle picks are like fine. Some of them still got quarterbacks. The one that didn't get quarterbacks were able to take advantages at tight ends, still get okay running backs, okay receivers. It's this later half of the first round that I just don't like it. I understand that getting like Harris Gibson's a great start, but now your receivers are Woods, Claypool, Judy. Like fine, like those are guys that I like. I think they're gonna be good. I think Allen's gonna be good. but like you have a deficit at tight end. You're still trailing these teams that got better running back than you, a better lead back than you at wide receiver. You're still trailing them. Other teams that got those great positions still have the quarterback. So I don't like late first round picks. I don't like how they turn out. These two teams were absolutely going to have to just abandon running back. Our only potential edge here is to just keep hammering these other positions, try and just get like more than we even need, and just be like, hey, some of these guys are hit. I'm going to be stacked everywhere else, and just pray that all those running backs end up working out, and that's your edge. I don't think the edge in these teams is going back to running back. So what I think I'm going to do here is draft the next 3 rounds, and then we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to click through the 3 rounds. In a second, it's going to skip to that point in the video, and then we're going to go over how I adjusted these teams based off of how we started in the first 6 rounds. Okay, so we have done the next 3 rounds now on the screen. As you can see, a lot of things have happened. Only Team 11 does not have a quarterback right now. I believe every team has locked in their tight end. So I didn't see any teams not taking tight end. I had a few runs go through. As you can also see, a lot of our sleepers are off the board. So these early teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, they've locked in their running back. They've got their quarterback, the stud. They've got, their stud tight ends, except for team 3. They've got good wide receivers they want. These teams are much more willing to be like, all right, I feel good about my team. It's time for sleepers. So they're taking your Mooney, Elijah Moore, Jacoby Myers. They're taking those guys maybe a little bit earlier than you would expect to see them go. So I see them going in like the 9th round range there. First team, just loaded up on receiver. We had 2 running backs we felt fine with, had the tight end, had the quarterback. Figured we just keep loading up on a bunch of receivers we like. Pretty similar with team 2, although I add in Trey Sermon for some upside. Team 3, I just threw in Dallas Goedert because we wanted that tight end to go along with this team. Mostert's a nice high upside running back. And of course, our boy Jacoby Myers. Team 4, didn't see as much value in taking the receivers, so we went with high upside Dylan. I went with Gordon because I think to start the season, he's still going to have a role. And so I thought this team can start off hot. If they start Gordon at the 2 with King Henry, that's a really good running back core to go along with what they have there. I think team 4 can start off really, really well. And then they have enough time to figure out running back. We'll probably take some other shots at running backs in the next few rounds. But they have time to figure out running back when it's like week 3, week 4, week 5, then when I think Jonathan Williams is taking over more. As we move through the other teams, we see I take some quarterbacks, I take some tight ends, I take a lot of wide receivers because the teams in the middle and back half of the draft, well, they were the teams that took more running backs early, so they're more likely to be taking these receivers like Debo. Galladay, we see a shot. I think the Galladay pick at 7 or in the 7th round for team 10 makes sense because they start off with Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, and they loaded out running backs. They got Swift, Henderson, Jacobs, just some guys that they think can get points. I think they're more willing to take a chance on someone like Galladay just because they're already good at wide receiver. Well, if Galladay hits, that's really beneficial to their team. They're not relying on that to happen though. And then I think taking like a Higbee Stafford stack after that would be sharp for them. You could argue that maybe these teams, the back half, wouldn't have taken tight end early, but I think after seeing Tunyon go off the board and Logan Thomas, I think those were smart picks for 11 and 12 to make because they didn't have as much of a need to go with running back and wide receiver, and quarterback wasn't a huge value. Like for them to take those, I think that would start a mini run at the tight end position. People would start seeing them come off the board, and there is a cliff. Like after Jonnu, like there are not very many good tight ends left on the board, and so you are still concerned that a team that takes Pitts, that takes Kittle, they might be taking backup tight ends, and so you can't just assume no one's going to take a second one. And since the drop-off's so big, you could be in a really bad position as team like 11 and 10 here, not having an edge at quarterback, then having a really bad tight end, now you're really relying on these other positions to work out. So that's like my thought process for these picks. We're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go through, I'm going to do rounds 10, 11, 12 for each team. We're going to talk about that again. So I'll be back in a second. All right, 3 more rounds in the books. Let's take a look at what I did on the screen. So I give Michael Thomas to team 1 here. I just figure they're not really in a position where they need this pick to work out, right? They've got quality running backs. Definitely, they're going to use sleeper picks for 13, 14, but they've got McCaffrey, Miles Sanders, Singletary. Positive reports out of Singletary, by the way. I think it's really close between them, him and Moss. I don't like him, and Singletary definitely goes early enough where it's like I don't personally want him on the team. But this is just getting like names at this point because we're in like an awful zone for running back. But I think this team feels good enough about running back to start the season. Great about tight end and quarterback, and great about wide receiver. So why not take a guy like Michael Thomas where we're just going to sit on the bench, and then maybe you just trade him midway through the season when he's coming back, and you get an upgrade at running back. Like, I just think this first team has an opportunity there, and an opportunity with Ertz to just be like, hey, one of these tight ends is not going to work out. Like, there's going to be plenty of tight ends this season we think are going to be solid. They're not going to be great. Ertz is probably going to have a role, and so you could probably trade him as well, just kind of getting trade pieces because the team is already so solid for one. Team 2 went with Callaway, Williams, and St. Brown. Williams, the backup running back now, over Justice Hill. I don't think Justice Hill is the 2. I think he's the 3. Honestly, is it Trey? I can't even remember his name half the time. Well, I don't even think I can pull it up. Show player card. There we go. Tyson. I don't know why I can't remember his name. Tyson Williams. He has had a really, really good camp. They are very excited about him. If they end up not signing, and this is obviously the risk with drafting is they could sign someone. If they end up not signing or trading for a running back, like it is because they believe in him as the 2, and he's probably gonna have high opportunities. So I think he'd be a good running back late. And then Callaway obviously been balling out in the preseason. St. Brown could lead the Lions in receptions. So I think those would be good picks for them to make. Teams 3 and 4. They just take some running backs that are just like mediocre, take some okay wide receivers, really just filling in depth because they're good in the other positions. Pretty similar for team 5 and 6. I want to say that I took Lance on team 5 because it had Herbert in there, and I just figured that I'm not fully convinced that Herbert has a dominant season. But even if he's just going to be okay, I mean, Lance is still a good pick late because when Lance takes over, I think he's going to be a better asset than Herbert. And then you can end up trading Herbert. You could trade Lance. You could do something. But I think he's a good late round pick. Obviously, you guys know I love Terrace Marshall. I love MVS. So I thought those were good picks there. I ended up taking Hooper on the Pitts team because let's just say the same thing. I think Pitts is very safe. He's going to have a lot of upside this season. I think he's going to be great. But let's just say he doesn't work out because he's a rookie tight end. I just thought grabbing someone like Hooper late, who we know for a fact is going to have some sort of role, would be a smart pick on this team. Just be like, hey, if I miss here, I'm getting someone who has production. Because in this range, I just wanted someone who's going to be on the field. Then Landry and Moore, just 2 fine wide receiver picks late because that team abandoned wide receiver for a little bit. So I thought they had to go with one there. Took Stevenson, Edwards, and Lindsey on team 7, just getting a little bit more running back depth. And then Edwards, just a really, really nice pick in the 11th round. These later teams, it was mostly just filling in. Tannehill, I took finally the quarterback on team 11. With the Higbee team, I took Gesicki as well, just because he is having a new quarterback. We're not 100% sure what his role is going to be. And so if anyone in that range were to bust, it might be him. I think he'll be great, but I think he could bust. And so I figured taking Gesicki there would be smart. I took Carlos Hyde. I don't remember if I talked about Sony Michel on the last round pick, but having that team with Harrison Gibson that we abandoned running back for a while, I think taking 2 pieces that we know we're going to get production would be smart, just because now I'm good. I'm only going to have those 4 running backs on the team. Harris, Gibson, Sony Michel, and Hyde. I know I'm going to get production every week, even when Harrison Gibson go on by or have a few missed weeks due to injury. I'm going to be able to get production, and so I'm just headlining with those 4 running backs, and I'm using the rest of my draft because I didn't spend high on wide receiver. So I'm taking Woods, Claypool, Judy, Fuller for upside, Gallup for upside, Ruggs, big play upside, and I might even take 2 more wide receivers with this next pick. I probably will, I'm just trying to hit at wide receiver to basically play catch up. You're just trying to play catch up when you have a late first round pick. Didn't think that was as necessary for like team 11 because they got Godwin, Kupp, Higgins, Chark, Smith. I thought they had quality receivers, and so they also had to take a quarterback. I thought they were better off taking maybe a higher upside pick in Williams in case that Damian Harris did go down. But that's the thought process for all those picks. Again, I'm not in love with a lot of the players here, but this is kind of where they're going to be going, and this is how I would have done it if I were each of these teams. I'm going to do the final 3 rounds. The last round is just going to be defense, and then we're going to wrap it all up, talk about each team, talk about which ones that we like. Okay, that will do it. That is the end of the draft. We're obviously going to go over this a little bit. As you see, final round is always reserved for defenses. It would be beautiful if you drafted in a league where everyone knew this, everyone just took the defense last. Obviously, it's not going to happen. People are going to start reaching a round or two ahead. They're going to take the Bucks, the Rams, the football team, Steelers, Broncos. I would expect maybe Ravens and Bills. I would expect those teams to kind of go a little bit ahead, but this is what I would personally do if I was drafting these teams. Nothing really of note in these final rounds. Like I said, we went with 2 wide receivers on Team 12. Team 1, I took another chance. So I said, I have Michael Thomas not getting me production for like the first half of the season. But I took Bateman as well. Bateman's going to open the season injured. He's not going to play for the first few weeks. But again, this team was built to be solid enough to be totally fine throughout the beginning of the season. And then we're going to start any buys and stuff like that. Well, now these players are coming back. This team can peak towards the end of the year. I think it's really good. So let me know what team you guys like the most. Give like your rankings. I do still think it is a huge edge being able to get one of these running backs to start. And that's why it's why I like having it, McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Henry, Zeke, Jones, right? Because you can pretty clearly see the advantage of like grabbing one of those guys, what it lets you do in taking tight end early, taking quarterback early, what doing that lets you do with attacking mid-range receivers, maybe some running backs you like in the mid-range, grabbing your sleepers earlier, not having to focus on these positions later. I did take Ertz as well on the team 1. Basically another thing, it's like trade bait. If someone gets hurt, we're going after Ertz. Maybe I already said that last time. But it just gives you so many advantages. Whereas if we're taking Adams, it's like, okay, now I have to start attacking these, Mixon and James Robinson ranges. If I go after Mahomes, it's like, no, now I have to go after wide receiver again. I know I have Adams, but I've got to go after like Lockett and Boyd and Pittman. Now I'm like trying to catch up. It's like you just feel like you're playing catch up when you don't grab one of these stud running backs early, just because of the flexibility that they give you in the later rounds. Now, maybe you guys feel differently. Maybe you do like the build. I don't know. I think Team 12 came out like fine. Maybe you like Team 10. Their wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, but then also Galladay and Devonta Parker, just like some a little bit upside receivers. I mean, I'm not in love with this team. Maybe you like that team, having Swift, Henderson, Jacobs, Fournette, Bernard, Mack. Like, again, I love the first teams, and maybe you like that. Or maybe you do like, I think the last team is fine. I think having Harris, Gibson to headline, and then Michelle and Hyde late, then having Josh Allen, having Tunyon, 2 quality options there, and then just hammering out wide receiver with every other pick. Woods, Claypool, Judy, Fuller, Gallup, Ruggs, Campbell, Watkins. You're just hoping you can find a few of them to use every week. I think this also gives a little bit more credence to taking running back early is like Kelsey. Like, let's look at the Kelsey team compared to the Aaron Jones team. Well, the Kelsey team at running back has Montgomery, Gus, Chase Edmonds, Stevenson, Lindsey, Hines. Good, but not like elite or anything. At wide receiver, they've got Diggs, Debo, Corey Davis, Waddle, Edwards, probably one of the weaker wide receiver cores. They don't have a top-end quarterback. They have Wilson, but they don't have like a top 6 quarterback. Or that the top 5. They don't have a top 5 quarterback, which has like the edge. So it's like, yes, they have the edge at tight end, but not necessarily in other spots. If you look at the team with Aaron Jones, it's like, I think they win at running back with like Jones, Carson, Mike Davis, Jamal Williams, Tevin Coleman. That's good. Pitts. So I think there's an obvious drop off at tight end, but still has an okay option in Pitts. Still with Brady, which isn't a huge drop off from Wilson. At wide receiver, Hopkins, Julio, Cooks, Jarvis, Rondale, Collins. So I'm not going to say that team is like phenomenal, but I think it is still better than the Kelsey team. But again, maybe you disagree. That's why we're doing these mock drafts. I do think it's if I had to rank these teams, it's like the top 5 teams. Then I'd kind of look in this mid-range. This team's not bad, team 9. So team 9 went Jonathan Taylor and Eckler. Then it loaded out wide receivers. It got Amari Cooper, DJ Moore. Then back to running back to Jamal Williams. Back to wide receivers, Sutton and Antonio Brown. So that's a really nice build. Grabs some value with Fant, some value with Hurts. Also grabs Fields in case Hurts doesn't work out. Fields maybe can work out. Goes back to running back with Moss, with Williams, back to wide receiver, grabs Emmanuel and Beasley. You know, maybe Diggs gets hurt and those guys both stand out. So I think like a quality build, just not a championship level team. Because if a championship team, you're going to need that high-end quarterback. So maybe Fields works out. That's kind of what you're hoping for on this team. Doesn't have a high-end tight end. Still is weaker at wide receiver than some of the early teams. So if you can, get a top 5 pick. If not, try and find your positional advantages. Maybe I didn't do a fantastic job of doing that later in these ones, but I do think loading out wide receiver on this team, going wide receiver than running back, were the best options. But let me know how you think every team worked out. Let me know what your favorite team is, what your favorite team maybe that I didn't talk about was, and anything you would have done differently in this draft. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.